Sveiki, įsijungę tinklalaidę Lietuva Amerika. Su jumis sveikinuosi aš, Žygimantas Pavilionis. Šį kartą be ilgų įžangų, nes tema rimta. Europa šiandien yra ant išlikimo ribos. O klausimas, ar mes suprantame, kokia tai akimirka. Ar Baltijos šalys, mes, Lietuva, Estija, Latvija, ar mes galime tapti labiau matomi ir svarbus didžiųjų kaimynų, kaip Jungtinė Karalystė ar Prancūzija akyse? Apie tai Žygis šiandieną kalbasi su Marko Mihkelson, ilgamečiu Estijos politiku ir žmogumi, kuris puikiai mato geopolitikos procesus ne tik mūsų regione, bet ir visame vakarų pasaulyje. Tai bus tiesus pokalbis apie tai, kur mes dabar esame, ką galime padaryti ir kodėl negalime leisti savo likti tik stebėtojais. Tad klausykite, įsitraukite, nes čia kalbame apie mūsų ateitį. Gero klausimo.
Okay, Marko, I know, well, Lithuania knows you. You are the most important Baltic musketeer. You stayed on the front lines forever, and you are now the only one of us still fighting. So we made so many trips together to Washington, to Kiev, to all other big NATO capitals. Now in the times of those tectonic changes, how can you explain to Lithuanians that it is still worse to work with Americans? And so I heard that you are going to next trip to Washington, D.C. So, what shall we do with those Americans? What shall we do in Europe? I just heard your great conference on anti-personal landmines, what you will do. So, give some guidance, Marko.
I think that most of us who really believe importance of alliance for us, because for Estonians, for Lithuanians, the same way, we need allies. We need strong support, and we need from our allies, and we need to see the transatlantic alliance is something what really is unshakable. We have been in quite a turmoil, let's say, during last month or so, specifically after January 20th. Then the new administration took the oath in White House, and we have seen quite dramatic set of news coming in from Washington, specifically when it comes to news like what the President of the United States has said about allies like Canada or Denmark when it comes to Greenland, or what has happened with reaching out aggressor state Russia and pressuring Ukraine to perhaps accept those terms, which are going to be very difficult to accept by Ukraine. And so it's obviously there are a lot of questions. Why are one of the most important ally as the United States is acting like they do? How seriously they really think about dividing us, because we hear time to time again how bad is the EU, for instance, or there is a kind of possibility that we end up soon into full-scale trade war. But what is most important right now to understand that, yes, we have to be frank when we meet our American partners and colleagues, specifically in the US Congress, because we should tell them always that what is really essence of this alliance and why we value it and why this is important for America as well. But at the same time, we should not make easier for Russia and China to achieve their strategic goals, and which is divide Europeans and Americans. What Russia would like to see that America withdraws from Europe. The same is in the interest of China as well. And then dividing us, perhaps even destroying, dismantling NATO, is very dangerous for our security. And this is why we have to really obviously acknowledge what kind of threat is there. If we don't know what is on the table, then Trump speaking with Putin, we have to know that, but for sure we are not 100% informed about that. But we have to the only way how we can learn of that, or how to make sure that Americans listen to us, what worries us, we have to directly talk to them.
Marko, so you are going soon with extended Weimar to Washington, but do you believe that congressmen can, change policy of the White House? Do you think that Congress is so important?
Yes, it is. It is, and because U.S. is still democracy. Yes, there are many question marks, but U.S. Congress has always been our very close ally. And never mind which party you talk about, Democratic or Republican, still we have absolute majority of both senators or representatives who understand how important is transatlantic alliance, how important is NATO, and don't forget that the U.S. is helping us through different kind of defense procurement programs as well. Baltic Defense Initiative program is again, luckily, live. Secretary of State Rubio gave particular order on that to release funds for that again. So if we think that Congress is not influential, then I think that those who say so don't know what is the role of U.S. Congress. Because U.S. Congress plays enormously important role when it comes to budget, when it comes to decisions about both the U.S. defense expenditures and how that should be spent. So it's, again, we should use all the channels. The U.S. Congress is only one to reach out and to make our voice clearly known among Americans.
Estonia was always impressing me that you've been shining as example and then pushing others to be as Estonia. I heard that you are going to raise your defense spending again. And, despite some critics of Estonia and Lithuania saying, despite economic problems, you have already raising defense spending quite enough. So how will you manage it all?
Yeah, it is existential question, because we know that threat is growing, and if we are not fulfilling those gaps which are right now present in when it comes to, for instance, defense plans of NATO, which actually is a reason why we have to quickly actually invest more into defense. Currently, Estonia is spending around 3.5% of GDP for defense. But our government, which is right now in transition from one coalition to another, the center-right coalition of two parties will propose a roadmap how to move as quickly as possible to the level of 5 to 6% of GDP. And this is very difficult, taking into account that the economic situation is not that good. The growth is minimum right now, but we need to work together with other European partners and allies as well to share the burden and to find the ways how to, perhaps if there is a need, to borrow money without being discriminated by, let's say, some criteria, which is agreed upon by Commission already, that that is the case what we can do. But again, some member states like Netherlands, for instance, just government decided that they are not supporting this idea. So we have to, what is important at the same time, when we spending more money in Estonia or here in Lithuania to defense, we have to work also very heavily with our partners and allies in Europe, because the dissonance of how much we put into defense and what we see what is happening, let's say right now in Italy or Spain or a number of other countries, that is this divide is too big at the moment. And that is something what, again, goes against deterrence, idea of deterrence, because Russia is following very closely what we do right now. They are getting a bit nervous about that we are rearming. The statements are there. It's good that they're getting nervous, because that tells you that we do the right thing. But this is a race against the time right now, and we should not lose any day.
Last difficult or provocative question. In Lithuania, at least, we are nervous. Baltic states, they were not invited to Paris. They were not invited to London. We saw what happened with Kaja Kallas' visit when Rubio didn't meet her. But the same happened with Baltic foreign ministers. Rubio didn't meet with them. The same happened with our defense minister. She was with me parallelly. Hexa didn't show up. What's happening here? On the Hill, it seems doors are open for us. But what's happening with the White House? What's happening with the administration and all those big governments? Are we becoming part of the menu already?
We should not allow that. Maybe there are some who think that Baltic nations are some kind of special case. We should not allow it to happen because if we are going to be isolated or somehow left like as a potential ground of future war, definitely we have to break this kind of way of thinking if that exists somewhere. I know that our diplomats work together heavily both in direction of London and Paris, and this is what happened specifically in London, because Paris was, as we know, it was specifically set in a way that the representative from Nordic Baltic countries was Prime Minister of Denmark, because she's leading right now NBA format. London was a bit different case. Initially also there was a plan that Denmark will represent all of us, and then suddenly we heard that our friends Finns and others invited themselves to that meeting, and that optics wasn't good. And I'm more than sure that people in London and Paris, they understood that, because I know that there are already new meetings planned and we are invited. But when it comes to the Washington, then this is something what we have to also communicate back to to our friends and allies in Washington, that this is not the way what perhaps we would like to see, and I hope that in a few days time there will be a meeting of foreign ministers of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Rubio, Secretary of State in Washington. The date is agreed upon, and let's say that will happen. Kaja Kallas was just sitting yesterday in Canada during a meeting of foreign ministers of G7 around the table together with Rubio. So it's I think that those small irritants, if I may use the same word what we heard from Riyadh, are going to disappear. But it very much depends from us as well. We should not whine about that. We should not kind of be just unhappy or kind of stay in the corner, but we have to, because we have plan. We know what should be done in Ukraine. We lead by example. We are the nations who spend the most per capita helping Ukraine. We spend a lot for defense, and we know how to deter Russia the best. So it's we need just to be ourselves with very clear messages, plans, and perhaps it is time when Baltic nations must coordinate diplomatic efforts more than perhaps ever during at least recent years. So and I see that on the level of defense and the foreign ministers, the work is going on.
Thank you, Marko. We did it being Baltic Musketeers, and they should take example out of us.
Tai buvo tikrai geras ir svarus pokalbis. Ramus, aiškus ir suteikintis vilties. Man patiko. Kartais atrodo, kad Baltijos šalys mažos, priklausomos nuo didžiųjų galių sprendimų ir mūsų likimas yra tik prisitaikyti. Bet tai netiesa. Šis pokalbis tik dar kartą parodė, kad mes ne tik galime prisikausti prie stipresnių partnerių, bet ir patys būti svarbus, įtakingi ir formuoti darbotvarkę. Tačiau tam reikia ne tik idėjų, bet ir veiksmų. Efektyvus regiono resursų koordinavimas, aiškus tikslai ir aktyvus dalyvavimas tarptautinėje politikoje. Tai vienintelis kelias užtikrinti mūsų ateitį. Jei šis pokalbis jums buvo naudingas, pasidalinkite, prenumeruokite ir būtinai įvertinkite. Kuo daugiau mūsų girdės, tuo stipresni būsime. Ačiū, kad klausotės ir iki kito karto.